Are you really living? Do you want some real adventure in your life? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you about the 5 most epic overland adventures that you can do. Forget trekking Machu Picchu or interrailing in Europe. I'm talking danger, real traveling. The kind of adventure that has you shitting yourself, literally. Because you're probably going to get severe diarrhea at some point. Severe diarrhea. And quite possibly emotional and physical scars for the rest of your life. If you survive. I've been to Antarctica, I've sailed my own boat around the Caribbean, 130 countries, a couple of war zones, so I know a thing or two about adventure. Real adventure needs a little bit of terror. Alright, here we go. Number 5, the Trans-Siberian Adventure. So the Trans-Siberian is the longest railway on Earth. It goes 9,000 kilometers. Starting in Moscow, Russia, going all the way across Siberia to Lake Baikal, at which point it splits off. You can either go east to Vladivostok, head for China, or you can go south through Mongolia and into China. That's what I did. Then I went all the way through China over a couple of weeks and ended up in the Philippines. If you wanted to make this extra long, you could even start as far as Portugal and take the train all the way across Europe to Moscow. So if you don't get off the train, it takes a whole week to go from Moscow to Vladivostok, and it's not exactly luxury either. It's old Soviet trains. There's also different classes, but the thing about the trains is that you can't leave your carriage, so that kind of sucks. There's usually an old babushka there at the end, and the only thing she will give you is a frown and maybe some hot water. And the funny thing is, when the train goes from Mongolia to China, they actually lift up the train and change all the wheels because the tracks are different in both countries. Yeah, I'm serious. Took a few hours, I remember. I highly recommend taking the Trans-Mongolian route because Mongolia is incredible. Beautiful steppe landscapes. This is the home of Genghis Khan. Funny enough, the biggest bar in Ulaanbaatar, the capital, is the Great Khan Irish pub. So I felt right at home there. They even have Guinness. You can go out to some national parks there, stay in a traditional yurt, go horseback riding, even play golf. And China, don't get me started on China. So much to see and do. As for Russia, Lake Baikal is one of the coolest places I've ever been. This is the deepest lake in the world. In fact, did you know that this lake is so deep, it contains 1/5 of all the world's fresh water. There's an island in the middle of the lake, you can stay out there. It got this really cool backpacker scene, you know, sawdust in the toilet kind of places. They build a big campfire there at night, play guitar, drink vodka. When you go to Siberia from Moscow, people are so much nicer. You know, Moscow, huge city, 10 million people, not the friendliest people, I'll be honest. Great nightlife though. St. Petersburg, on the other hand, they're a bit more European, a bit more open, a bit more liberal, cool town. Obviously, whether you do this trip in summer or winter makes a massive difference. Winter, absolutely freezing. The cold weather kind of matches the people, I guess. The train obviously has heating though. And in summer then, it's actually quite nice. I did in summer, it was perfectly pleasant. Funny enough, I ended up in jail in Siberia. You can read about this in my book, by the way. Good times. Number 4, Cairo to Cape Town. So I've actually done this one complete. Started in Cairo, went all the way down through Africa to the southern tip. It was probably the most epic overland adventure I've ever done. So you start in Cairo, do the pyramids, take a boat down the Nile. There's a ferry into Sudan. You visit the incredible Meroe pyramids there in the desert. Sudan actually has more pyramids than Egypt. They're not as big, but they're far more isolated. In fact, when I went with my friend, we camped out there in the middle of the desert, right beside the pyramid, and there was 0 people. Absolutely unreal. It's a little difficult at the moment.
Sudan has been plagued by conflict since independence.
A little bit of terror. Then of course you go on to Ethiopia, one of my favorite countries in the world. You got deserts, you got jungles, the rich history. It's got the most UNESCO sites in the whole of Africa. It's the birthplace of coffee. It's the only country in Africa that retains its indigenous alphabet. Beautiful people, and the food is just incredible. But there's also a war there at the moment. Now I think about it, up in the north. So Sudan, Ethiopia, both kind of war zones at the minute. Hey, I told you these were adventures. Then of course you got Kenya, Masai Mara, safaris, Uganda, whitewater rafting. You can pop into the Congo, visit some gorillas. Tanzania, Zanzibar, Mount Kilimanjaro. Then you can take the train from near Zanzibar all the way across into Zambia, where you'll find the most beautiful place in the world, Victoria Falls. Maybe my favorite place in the whole planet. Wow. You can do bungee jumping there. You can go south to Botswana, Zimbabwe. I highly recommend though the route through Namibia, maybe the most picturesque desert in the world. Do skydiving there, quad biking, sandboarding. Namibia is amazing. And then you head to South Africa, Cape Town. Cape Town is probably the most beautiful city in Africa. You can dive with great white sharks there, it's super cool. So Cairo to Cape Town, of course it makes the list. Number 3, Panamericana, Alaska to Argentina by land. The longest road trip in the world, allegedly. My mate just done this. He bought a van, got it all kitted out, and he spent over a year driving through all of America, Canada, down through Mexico, all of Central America, down to Colombia and southwards from there. I was lucky enough to join him on part of this trip. I joined him from Nicaragua to Panama. Then I got to do a segment with him this year. We needed to bring the van back up to Mexico because my friend moved to Mexico. So we started in Lima, Peru, all the way up the coast, through Ecuador, and then into Colombia. I've also been to Argentina, all the way down to Ushuaia when I was on my way to Antarctica. Really beautiful place. A caveat to this, it isn't the longest road in the world because when you hit Panama, there is the Darien Gap, which is uncrossable by road. For my friend to ship the van from Panama to Colombia, it cost more than shipping it from Europe to North America. It was like 6K. If you're gonna do this in your own vehicle, be warned. So this is probably the tamest on the list. Loads of backpackers going from North America down to South America. So you can take buses, you find lots of hostels, really good infrastructure, but still a blast. Highlights obviously Alaska, Mexico, the cuisine, Chichen Itza, one of the wonders of the world. Apparently Guatemala is amazing. In San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua, they have this famous Sunday Fun Day pub crawl where you go through all the hostels. Super fun. Costa Rica, it's got the nature, the waterfalls, the mountains, volcanoes. Panama City, and obviously Colombia. I've been there 3 times. You all know Colombia, it's got everything. Also one of my favorite countries, Las Mujeres, tú sabes. Machu Picchu, Peru, I really want to go back to Peru. Lima was class, the food, ceviche. Patagonia, obviously, highly recommended you learn Spanish for this one. You're going to be using it all the time. Spanish is also the easiest language to learn. So yeah, Panamericana, can't go wrong. Number 2, Casablanca to Cape Town. And I'm just saying Casablanca to Cape Town because of the sea to sea. I like alliteration. But you know, you can start in Tangiers, Tunisia, whatever. Point being, you start at the top of Africa and you go all the way down through Central Africa and end up in Cape Town. So I personally have done the West African portion of this trip. Started in Gambia, Senegal, and ended up in Lagos. So it was 11 countries, wild time, but you don't have to do it that way. You can also go through Mauritania and the Sahel. So this is probably the most hardcore trip on the list, I would say, because West Africa and Central Africa are intense. They are not for beginners. We're talking bush taxis, unpaved roads, river crossings. I remember when we were traveling from Guinea-Bissau to Guinea, we had to take a van and put it on a wooden raft. We had to pull a chain to pull the raft with the van on it across the river. Journey from hell. And you'll have to do a lot of travel like that in West Africa and Central Africa. It's tough, but real adventure. And the bribes. Let's not forget the bribes. Especially if you go to Nigeria. We paid more bribes the first 24 hours in Nigeria than we did the previous 2 months in West Africa. Imagine that. We also got chased by the police that night. We were on the back of a motorbike, got knocked off the bike, fell over. Then they stole the bike and robbed us. And that was the police. The bad police, as our driver said. They were in an army pickup truck. That West African trip takes up a good chunk of my last book, so you have to read it if you want to hear some of my stories. We also had a chicken with us, like a real chicken, called Captain Cluck. He died. There was a civil war going on in Côte d'Ivoire at the time, and he died there. Not from war, from a bag that fell over, but it was still sad. Highlights from this trip obviously include the Sahara Desert, the Congolese jungle. Me personally, I was a big fan of Sierra Leone. Incredible beaches, awesome nightlife. I also really like Côte d'Ivoire and Guinea. You got waterfalls there, really like the people over there. Also Morocco, incredible country if you haven't been. So much to see, so much to do. I've been to most countries in the Middle East. Morocco is probably the most Aladdin-esque, winding bazaars, beautiful deserts, yummy food, loads of culture. I love Morocco, I go back in a heartbeat. Also another highlight, Lagos nightlife. Victoria Island, it's wild. 1/5 of all Africans are Nigerian, 200 million people. And imagine that all the best looking ones end up in this tiny island off the coast of Lagos, and that's where they go to party. It's fun. But as I said, not for beginners, guys. Maybe head to Thailand first or something. Or go to East Africa. And last on the list, the Silk Road. So traditionally this route starts in Turkey, goes all the way across Asia, and ends up in Xi'an, China. It's actually more like the Silk Roads because there's a couple of different routes you can take. So this was obviously a very famous historical route, a lot of trade. This was once the center of the world. While I haven't done the route in one go, I have done Turkey, Iran, went snowboarding with my dad in Kazakhstan one year. I was only in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan a couple of months ago, in fact. If you're gonna do the Trans-Siberian, or you're going to do the Silk Roads, I highly recommend you learn Russian. I'm going to leave a link below, and if you are interested, I highly recommend Pimsleur. So some highlights, obviously, Iran, loads of history, Isfahan and Shiraz, all that. Alcohol is illegal in Iran, but if you know people, there's a delivery service. The nightlife in Central Asia, on the other hand, these are Muslim countries, but they were under the Soviet Union, and so they're pretty liberal, so it's not very strict. You get 24-hour bars there. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tashkent, a lot of party going on. The visa policies have changed. They're interested in foreign direct investment. I'm very bullish on Central Asia. Also, another really interesting place to visit is Turkmenistan. It's like the North Korea of Central Asia. You have to go with a tour. Very strange place. There's a lot of interesting YouTube videos about it. You can check it out. And if you wanted to do some amazing detour, I highly recommend the Caucasus, Georgia, maybe one of my favorite countries in the world. The wine, the food. Armenia's cool too. Baku, yeah, Caucasus is a class. The Pamir Highway in Tajikistan, the mountains of Kyrgyzstan, famous for their trekking. Then of course you have Western China, which is a whole other thing. Haven't been, would love to go. And if you really want to add in the danger, it's got Afghanistan on the list. I have a mate who's doing this trip, all right, at this very moment. He got a 4x4 and he's in Afghanistan right now. Let me call him. Is he answering? Ivan, how's it going? How's Afghanistan?
Bro, loving it. Place is amazing, totally worth it.
And how are the Taliban treating you?
You just go to any place and you see at least one AK-47, but they are super nice. The Taliban are just stopping us with the cars. They're more curious about what we're doing, where we're going, and who we are than actually checking, you know what I mean?
What's been your favorite country so far?
I want to say Afghanistan is definitely the best so far.
All right, thanks for answering the call, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
One of my sailing buddies. Anyway, also if you wanted to head south from Afghanistan, you can go to Pakistan and do the Karakoram Highway, the highest border in the world. I done that with two of my mates a few years ago. It was absolutely amazing. In fact, I have a YouTube video about it. Also have a video about visiting the gun markets over there in Pakistan. You can also check that out. So the Silk Road, guys, ancient, epic, what a trip. Do subscribe and check out this next video. I'm off on my next adventure.